Happy Saturday, everyone. It's Bonnie and Greg Dixon from Healthy Wealthy Camper, and this is our second edition of the Watch Party. Bonnie attended LifeWave Share the Light conference in Anaheim, California, in the middle of October, and we're sharing some of the highlights from that. And Bonnie, you want to say a few things?
Yes. When you go to a conference that LifeWave puts on, it is very, very informative, and there's a lot of information shared. So we're doing this for twofold. One, I want to listen to it again. And two, I wanted others to be able to experience it as well when David Schmidt shares. He is just nonstop researching and creating products for the public to consume, and he's so excited to share this information. So we'll dig in today on anti-aging, some more anti-aging. And as you hear it, we are sending recordings out. You might need to listen to it twice, like myself. And just know that as David's sharing, you'll want to get back to Greg and I, or whoever invited you today, to learn more if you'd like to get started on anti-aging. So with that, let's dig right in, Greg, and have David Schmidt.
Alrighty then.
Brilliant share.
Okay, so let's take a look at LifeWave and Lifespan and some of the things that you can be implementing to have an impact today on your overall quality of life. So the goal here is that not only do we want to increase lifespan, but we want to increase health span, meaning that as you age, you stay younger in the process, and we even reverse some of the signs and symptoms of aging. If we can do this, then that means we decrease our risk of all-cause mortality. So for example, if we implement a regular program of eating healthy and exercise, and we maintain a healthy body composition, and we stay strong, then what we do is we reduce our risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer, just to name a few. So these are really important things that will have an impact on quality of life, not just that we're trying to extend life, we're trying to extend the amount of time that we can have productive, youthful years. So let's look on some research of some specific nutrients, for example, that you could include. So notably, the body's levels of glutathione decline with age. And for all the reasons already mentioned, glutathione as the master antioxidant is going to be a key strategy in extending human life and maintaining health. Glutathione also, of course, is principal antioxidant in the liver, which facilitates detoxification. So in a world that we live in today, which is full of contaminants, we need to maintain our body's levels of glutathione because it is the backbone of our defensive system. So of course, we have two products that will help support your body's levels of glutathione. One is the glutathione patch, and the other is Celergize, which contains the precursors that your body needs to make glutathione. And there are a number of studies that we have in our back office that demonstrate how this patch elevates glutathione. Depending on what your diet is like and what you do with supplementation will depend on your ability to make glutathione. So for example, if you are a vegan or a vegetarian, you may not be getting enough of the amino acid cysteine in your diet, or the mineral selenium, which is a necessary precursor for making glutathione. So that's why we included N-acetylcysteine in Celergize and selenium, so you could get those nutrients. Now, carnosine is a nutrient that everyone should be taking or elevating because it has enormous health benefits. First, as we've already discussed, carnosine protects the telomeres, and this is going to protect our ability to make new cells. So we consider this. When we get into our mid-70s, our cells reach what's called the Hayflick limit. The number of times the cells can divide are defined by this limit. And in humans, it's about 70 to 75. So at that point, we're no longer making younger, healthier cells. The telomeres, since they're regulating cell division, if we can simply use methods to lengthen the telomeres or prevent them from decaying, which happens in all species that don't age, then we can continue to make younger, healthier cells way beyond the limit of 75. In addition, carnosine is stored in the brain and in the muscle tissue. So our research with carnosine demonstrates that in addition to improving cognition, also improves strength and stamina. So when we consider all-cause mortality in individuals above the ages of 50, 60, 70, one of the key things that we see is that this is closely linked to strength and stamina. Meaning if you're exercising, if you're using nutrients like carnosine to maintain strength, your risk of dying from anything declines. Now, one of the key factors in aging is stress. So if we live a life where we work long hours, we're not taking methods to manage stress, we have stress in our personal life, we have stress at work, we're not taking time to exercise, meditate, pray, then this will ultimately cause a health crisis in our life. Emotional stress is linked to oxidative and inflammatory stress. So when we have these negative emotions, it has a detrimental physical impact on the body. It's important to recognize that. So Eon, what we have found, within about 15 seconds, reduces the stress on the nervous system. We did this study, one of the important studies that we did with Eon was with Dr. Tom Budzinski, and we used a piece of technology, it's called thought technology, and it measures changes in the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And what we found is that within 15 seconds of applying the Eon patch, the nervous system goes into balance. So that's why we market this as a product for managing stress. Now here's a fun fact. Very often I'll be asked, well, we know the glutathione patch elevates glutathione. We know X39 elevates copper peptide. Why don't we show what peptide Eon will elevate? And the reason why we don't talk about that is because if you were to do a search on that peptide, you would immediately see medical applications for that peptide, and we don't want to make those claims for this patch since we don't study it that way. But the Eon patch was developed as a result of research that was done, interestingly enough, on bees. So if you take a peptide that naturally occurs in the human body, in the liver, and this peptide declines with age, and you take that peptide and you inject it into a worker bee, you can increase the lifespan of the worker bee to be equivalent to a queen bee. And turns out that the queen bee, the reason why they live longer is because they're eating the royal jelly, and that peptide is found in the royal jelly. So this is a very good example of how we can look to nature and find clues to how different species are defying normal aging and then apply that over to human beings. So use of the Eon patch elevates this peptide. It will reduce stress on your nervous system, reduce inflammatory oxidative stress, and we certainly believe this will ultimately have very beneficial impact on longevity. Now, copper peptide. We don't have enough time today to cover all the benefits of X39 and copper peptide, but a simple search will reveal that there are numerous benefits to using X39 and elevating your copper peptide. We know that copper peptide levels decline by over 60% after the age of 60.
You really like. Make
So
sure to
we
let me
have
know
to have a
when the
strategy if we
podcast-
want to improve our longevity. We have to have a strategy for increasing our body's levels of copper peptide. Again, with Celergize, we include the nutrients that are required to make copper peptide, just in case you don't have the best diet. So some of the benefits are cosmetic in the sense that we're repairing the skin. But keep in mind that collagen is the #1 protein in the body. So if we're seeing these effects show up in the skin, we know that they're also occurring throughout the body, improving skin firmness, elasticity, reduction of fine lines and wrinkles, even improving the structure of aged skin. This is an important one because when we do research on human aging, one of the key things that you see is that the physical structure of the cell changes over time. The cell has what's called a cytoskeleton, which is made of a matrix of collagen protein. So it's like jello inside the cell. And the organelles are attached to this collagen matrix. When we're age 25, levels of collagen begin to drop. So we could say, in effect, that around age 25, we start to age. So we need to have methods of increasing collagen production and maintaining the integrity of the cell, and copper peptide is one of the methods that we can use for that. Another interesting effect of copper peptide is reducing photo damage. I would encourage all of you to make sure you're getting enough copper in your diet. In physics, we would create a Faraday cage to screen out electromagnetic radiation. And these Faraday cages are made of copper. Well, it turns out the same thing happens in human beings. The skin stores copper. And if we get enough copper in our diet, it can help to act like a Faraday cage and screen out harmful UV light. So this is something that we should be doing, getting enough copper in our diet to protect us from unwanted exposure to UV. And of course, copper peptide improves overall skin appearance, protection from UV radiation. Copper peptide manages inflammation in the body, and of course, other things that we can't talk about. And you're not talking about either on these conference calls, right? All right. And of course, the big one relative to our conversation today is that copper peptide, which was discovered by Laurent Picard. I hope he wins a Nobel Prize for his discovery, 50 years doing research in this area. And he found that copper peptide resets 1/3 of the human genome back to a more youthful state. So this is really key. There's a phenomena called parabiosis. And this was discovered more than 150 years ago. And essentially it was found that if you take the blood from a young animal, like a rat, and you put that into an older rat, that the older rat starts to become younger. And the same effect occurs in human beings. And one of the principal factors that's driving that process is copper peptide. So again, we can look to nature. And we've done numerous studies on X39 now. So very, very early on in 2018, we had developed protocols working with a lab on how to measure GHK and GHK-Cu levels in human beings. And so we did our initial pilot studies, and we found that application of X39 did, in fact, elevate levels of GHK within 24 hours and levels of copper peptide within 7 days. So the copper peptide is formed first, and then very quickly it binds with copper. And by the way, both GHK and GHK-Cu are biologically active, meaning there's beneficial effects from both of those peptides. So this is why when people start to use X39, they find within the first day that they're already sleeping better, they have improved energy and other effects. So, and then I click past that other slide a little bit too quickly, but of course you can get this in your back office. That was an initial pilot study, but then we did a double-blind placebo-controlled study, and we found the same thing, that X39 is indeed elevating copper peptide. Okay, oh, and there it is back up over there. Thank you, kind person, in audio video. So these studies are available in your back office. We don't need to go through them now, but this is just to say that we're doing the research studies on our products in this field of anti-aging and age reversal. So first, you can have the confidence in knowing that this is a science-based company. We support our products with proper research, but also we're on the cutting edge of looking at what is possible in stopping and reversing human aging. And there's a lot more to the story, but we're going to watch this video and then come back.
You know, we all kind of lose function in our bodies as we get older, right? Like the big things that, if you look at the biggest killers, it's like heart disease, cancer, diabetes. So a lot of medicine is targeting how do you treat that disease. But there's another theory, which is like maybe the root cause of all those things is that, you know, our cells are just losing function as we get older, and so you're more susceptible to get these diseases. Like, I'll give you an example. So if you're like, let's say you're in your 20s or 30s, and you know, you have some damage to your cells, like you drink too much, or you get sick, or like, you know, and there's a kind of like this insult or damage to your cells. Your cells have the ability to recover from that. When you get older, your cells don't really have the ability to respond as well to these kinds of threats, or like, you know, it could be viruses, or, you know, eating or drinking too much, or not getting enough sleep or whatever. They start to lose their function. And so instead of treating like the effects of these diseases, why don't we just try to restore the function your cells had when you were younger? Because like, who wouldn't want to feel like you had the metabolism or immune system or whatever, or the muscle system of like a younger person, right? Mm-hmm. That would just be more years of healthy life, you know, to get stuff done. So anyway, I think we're on the cusp of potentially being able to make a breakthrough in this area. And it's high risk, but I think this is exactly what people should be doing. Like if you have some success in business, like try to push the frontier, right? Do something that's really challenging. What we're trying to do is not change the type of the cell. We're trying to just change the functional age of the cell. Like if it starts as a skin cell, stay as a skin cell, but just be like a younger version of yourself. And so we're searching the vast space of different sets of proteins. They're called transcription factors, which basically turn on and off different genes in the cell. There's like a massive number of combinations of these that are potential. We've developed a high throughput screening system that can test like millions of hypotheses, looking for novel sets of proteins you can put in these cells that change the state of it back to like a younger cell. And we know that.
So you're injecting proteins, and
yeah,
it would be an injection of proteins into the body that the cells absorb.
Yeah, and they're delivered via this thing called lipid nanoparticles. But yeah. It's basically a way to deliver proteins into these cells, and it causes them to turn on and off different genes.
Wow.
Yeah.
How far out do you think you are? Any
I mean,
idea?
we're going to start clinical trials on our first program probably in the next year or two in humans. And that's where you have to go through FDA or different countries you can do it in. And then we have 2 or 3 other programs coming along. So I think within like 5 to 10 years, we'll hopefully have candidates ready for, potentially someone could actually go get it prescribed by their doctor in like, hopefully like less than 10 years. But, these are kinds of things that sometimes you need to try a lot of shots on goal to get something that works, right? And it can start to get expensive the later you are down doing these human trials. Like it costs something like $2 billion and takes about 10 years to get a drug to market. And that's with a lot of failures along the way. So, we're putting a lot of capital to see if we can come up with a breakthrough here.
Who wants to be part of that, right? Any way to make us look younger and feel younger, right? Well, thank you so much, David. We're going to be hearing from him in just a few minutes. But our next speaker is Dr. Geeta Jensen, a hands-on scientist with more than 35 years of experience in biological sciences and natural products research. As research director at NIS Labs, she helps design research that's not only ethical and effective, but truly meaningful. While she couldn't be here with us in person today, she has recorded a special presentation just for this audience. Let's take a look.
Hi, my name is Geeta Jensen, and I'm the research director at NIS Labs. We have conducted clinical research on the LifeWave X39 patch, and I'm speaking to you today to present our results. My background is in immunology. I have a PhD from University of Aarhus in Denmark. I went on to work as a postdoc in cancer biology and University of Alberta in Canada. And I became an assistant professor at McGill University, studying systems biology involving both immune cells and stem cells. And I'm the founder and the research director at NIS Labs. I have worked with research on natural products for over 30 years. We use mainstream tools to ask questions about unusual methods for supporting health. My passion is to find truth in ancient traditional healing methods and to help talk about them in words that modern science can embrace. To do this, I founded our lab, NIS Labs. At NIS Labs, we study the mechanisms that allow our immune cells to travel around in our body to protect everything. Here's a drawing of some sleepy cells, both inside the blood vessel and in the tissue. There are some NK cells and some B cells, some T cells, and some macrophages. This sleepy picture can change pretty rapidly. X39 helps the immune system to be alert and happy. We want the cells moving to protect our entire body in the blood, the skin, the gut, and all parts of us. And we want the cells to communicate. We also study the processes inside ourselves of making cellular energy. Our health is not a simple on-off switch. We know that our overall health is a result of endless interconnected processes, starting with cellular energy, supporting our immune system's alertness, communicating in the body with nerves and chemical messengers, and then a feedback loop with anti-inflammatory effects. Based on how complex our body is, I was very excited when I learned about the X39 patch, a tiny little thing that makes light, not just on its own, but only when it's applied to the skin. When you look at the patch, you don't see the light. I knew we had to study this. We conducted a clinical trial to document what happens within the first few hours after you put on an X39 patch on the back of your neck. The results were very clear, and these results is what I'll be presenting to you today. First, I want to tell you about how we did this study, where each person served as their own control. Each study participant came for 2 clinic visits and used the X39 patch on one visit and a placebo patch on another visit. We took blood samples immediately before applying a patch and then at 1 and 2 hours later. People were sitting quietly and resting and doing it in the same way, both on the X39 day and the placebo day, and they rested calmly in a quiet room between the blood draws. Now, the placebo patch looked exactly like the X39 patch, but did not contain the things that make light when it is applied to the skin. And the study was randomized. This means that different participants used the X39 patch on the first visit and placebo on the second visit, and other participants used the placebo on the first visit. The X39 patch and the placebo patch had two different numbers written on the back, but neither the participants nor the clinic staff knew which patch was which. Now, while we know that we can measure changes in the blood after consuming natural products, we were not sure what was going to happen when we applied the X39 patch to the skin. We hoped to see some changes, and we expected that they would be mild. Our results were amazing. We had two surprises, one that had to do with cellular energy and another that had to do with reduced inflammation. Before I tell you more about these findings, I need to introduce you to those two topics. Let's talk about energy first. In order to talk about the ways we documented changes in cellular energy in the X39 study, let's look at the parts inside each of our cells that make energy, the mitochondria. Inside every cell in our body, we have bubbles, tiny little bubbles that are called mitochondria. This is where energy is being made. They are literally the powerhouses of our providing energy for our entire body. The mitochondria have a unique machinery inside, similar to a conveyor belt, that's called the electron transport chain. So that electricity that is being transported is where I have these little lightning bolts on this drawing. They use this electron transport, they use this to supercharge energy into molecules called ATP. So the mitochondria are subcellular energy factories. The ATP is loaded with energy that can be sent out into the body and give energy to our muscles, our brain, and everything else that burns energy for our body to function. So as part of the X39 study, on all clinic visits, we took the blood samples into the laboratory and we studied the mitochondria. And already after 1 hour of wearing an X39 patch, the mitochondria were larger than 1 hour after wearing a placebo patch. This process of getting larger mitochondria is called mitochondrial biogenesis. And we know it can happen within hours after consuming certain nutraceutical supplements. However, we had no idea that this type of change happens and can be measured in the blood 1 hour after putting on an X39 patch. And how it happens, we don't fully understand yet, since we don't fully understand the code for how our cells communicate with light inside the body. Now let's talk about inflammation. Inflammation is related to aging and accelerates aging, and the loss of cellular energy also accelerates aging. Also, in terms of regulating inflammation, the X39 patch worked quickly. The anti-inflammatory marker IL-1RA increased rapidly and was increased at 1 hour, and the pro-inflammatory cytokine IL-8 decreased. This change was rapid, creating a boost of cellular communication that helped regulate inflammation. This wave of cellular communication also involved reduced levels of C-reactive protein, another inflammatory blood marker. After that initial boost of anti-inflammatory activity at 1 hour, we observed that at 2 hours, the levels of C-reactive protein were reduced. So it seems that applying the X39 patch to the skin initiates measurable changes that spreads throughout our whole body. It's like adding a drop of water into a silent lake, and the drop starts ripples, and the ripples expand outward. And it starts waves of orchestrated changes in the body involving rapid increase in energy and rapid regulation of inflammation. Now let's shift gears a little. There was a second part to this clinical trial. After the first part of the clinical trial was done, all the participants then used the X39 patch every day for 4 weeks. And this part of the clinical trial allowed us to see what happened with daily use over time. We studied the blood cells after 1 day and 1 week and 4 weeks. And this further helped solidify that applying an X39 patch has effects that we can quantify and that we can discuss scientifically. And the X39 patch works long term. Already after 1 day of using X39, the cells were able to maintain a higher energy production under stress. The small umbrellas here and here over each mitochondria show that they're protected from stress. The green circles show that the size of the mitochondria is protected under stress, and the purple lightning bolts illustrate that the electrical charge inside the mitochondria are protected under stress. The mitochondria can continue to make more energy and more ATP. We tested many other blood markers in all the blood samples in the X39 study, and we saw additional evidence of ongoing changes and adaptation when using the X39 patch. Examples include the anti-inflammatory marker IL-1RA that was increased at 1 week, and the pro-inflammatory markers IL-8 and TNF-alpha were decreased at 1 day and 4 weeks. So when the X39 patch is used daily, the body experiences daily waves of adjustment to cellular energy, cellular resilience, and reduced inflammation. Every time a new X39 patch is applied, a fresh wave of adaptation and boost of energy happens. Now, as I'm winding down my presentation, a reminder to all of us. For us to age gracefully in good health, we need to tend to our body like a garden. We need to clean up the dead leaves, tend to the flowers, keep the soil hydrated and nutrient-rich. The use of the X39 patch generated results showing orchestrated waves of events, starting with mitochondrial biogenesis and continuing with increased mitochondrial membrane potential, anti-inflammatory markers, reduced pro-inflammatory biomarkers, and an increase in energy. I thank you for the opportunity to share with you our scientific results from the clinical trial on wearing the X39 patch. And congratulations to David Schmidt and the LifeWave team for your contributions to natural and gentle support of health and wellness. Thank you.
What if I told you there's a creature that doesn't age like we do? No wrinkles, no slowing down, just endless molting and growing. Meet the lobster, nature's closest thing to biologically immortal. But if they don't age, why and how do they die? And what does it have to do with human aging? First, let's clear something up. Biological immortality doesn't mean can't die. It means the creature doesn't age in the typical sense, no increase in mortality risk over time. Lobsters grow bigger and reproduce efficiently even in old age. Some have lived over 100 years. So what's the secret? Inside our cells, DNA strands are packed into chromosomes. At the ends of those chromosomes are telomeres, protective caps like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, those telomeres get shorter. Eventually, they become too short and the cell stops dividing or dies. That's called cellular senescence. and it's a big part of aging. Lobsters produce large amounts of an enzyme called telomerase, even into adulthood. This enzyme adds new sequences to the ends of telomeres, essentially rebuilding them. This means their cells don't suffer the usual wear and tear from division. They can keep growing, healing, and reproducing without signs of aging. But it's not a perfect system. As lobsters grow, they need to molt, shedding their exoskeleton, but the larger they get, the more energy molting requires. Eventually it becomes too physically demanding. In many cases, they die from complications during molting, not from aging itself. So technically, they're immortal at the cellular level, but not invincible. Could understanding telomerase help us fight aging in humans? Maybe. But unregulated telomerase is also linked to cancer, so it's complicated. For now, lobsters remain a fascinating glimpse into how nature plays by different rules. The immortal lobster? Maybe not forever, but definitely longer than most.
How about that Dr. Gita Jensen, huh? She has become a very valuable partner for us in performing clinical studies. She really wanted to be here today, but had a complication in travel plans, but maybe we'll have her here next year to talk about some additional research that we're doing on other patches with her. She's a fantastic researcher. We're blessed to be working with her. I also really love her accent. You know, she's from Denmark, and something about an American hearing that Danish accent, it just sounds so authoritative. I often wonder if I should adopt an accent to sound more authoritative, but so far what I'm going with seems to have worked, so I'll stay with it. All right, so what are the signs that a cell is aging? So this is where, again, we're going to look towards nature for clues. If we can examine the structure of cells and how they change over time, we can learn about how to stop or even reverse these changes. So let's look at some of them. One is, we know that as cells age, they become more and more dehydrated. Part of this is linked to collagen production. So if we think of collagen like a jello that holds water, and collagen production begins to decline at around age 25, then it makes sense that the cells can hold less water. So this is a very important concept. We want to be able to improve hydration if we're going to change the way that people age. As the cells age, they begin to shrink. And there is what's called a membrane potential. So the electrolytes of the cell hold a charge around the cell membrane. And as we age and the collagen matrix begins to decline, that electrical charge decreases. And one thing you won't normally see in textbooks is that the charge around the cell is intimately linked to the replication of our DNA. The DNA, and that's because this has more to do with biophysics than biochemistry. The DNA is a helical coil. It's an inductor in electrical terms. So as the membrane potential decreases, the amount of energy that the cell has to pass along to a future cell decreases. So this is an important part of how we can define aging, meaning that if we can restore proper hydration, increase the size of the cell, increase the electrical potential of the membrane, we can stop and reverse human aging. That's part of the process. This is also linked to mitochondrial function. So the amount of energy that we have for making new proteins, for repairing damage, is all linked back to the mitochondria. And we know that most people experience mitochondrial dysfunction around age 50 or so. So we want to adapt strategies to keep the mitochondria improving lots of energy, and that's going to help dramatically with our quality of life. Already covered the importance of telomeres. So when we study lobsters, species of ants that don't age or age like human beings, one of the key things that you see over and over again is that their telomeres do not shrink. So we have to have a strategy to address that. Decrease in collagen production. We've already covered that one. Decrease in protein synthesis. So as people get to be 50, 60, 70, they get injured, their ability to heal drops off dramatically, and that's because the ability to make new proteins has declined, and that protein synthesis is again linked to mitochondrial function. So we want to be able to make new proteins so that we can heal. We have to address that. We have to control our detoxification pathways, and there are some simple ways of doing that. But if our body is allowed to accumulate what are called zombie cells, these are cells that don't function but haven't been removed from the body. They will induce oxidative and inflammatory stress on healthy cells and are key in the aging process. So we have to have a strategy for addressing that. Oxidative and inflammatory stress causes breaks in the DNA, damage to healthy tissue. We have to manage that. And then finally, change in genetic expression. So one of the key biological models in human aging is this idea that we begin to lose our library of information of who we are as we age over time. The good news is that what's been discovered is that the information of who we are when we're younger is still there, but that information has gone dormant. So we need to find ways to reactivate that information so the cells can indeed become younger. So let's tackle these one at a time. First, dehydration. What can we do about this? Well, surface tension plays a crucial role in hydration, meaning if you can consume water that through the change in structure or the precise mineral content and the surface tension of the water is lower, it will be able to drive into the cell. And fortunately, this is one of the many benefits of X2O. It is a highly coherent water structure. We're going to see a video of this in the next presentation. But because the water structure of X2O is so coherent, the surface tension drops, and now hydration increases within about 15 seconds of consuming it. The membrane potential. Membrane potential, as it decreases, has all of these negative effects on how our metabolism functions. And one of the things that we found in the very early days of LifeWave was that application of the energy patches not only improved mitochondrial function, but they also increased the volume of the cell. We did that study with Dr. Gaetan Chevalier, where we found the cells actually increased in size, increasing the membrane potential. And that happens within about 20 minutes of the application of the energy patches. So what can we do about mitochondrial function? Everything seems to be coming back to this. So we think of the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell. It's where our bodies are making energy. So if we can't make enough energy, nothing else happens. It's a little bit like if you only have $500 in your bank account, you're not going to have a good time at Disney, right? So we have to increase our reserve of cellular energy, and that's going to happen in the mitochondria. And a decline in mitochondrial function is always related to aging. So keep that in mind. If you only had a strategy for increasing mitochondrial function, you would be way ahead of the game. And fortunately, we have many products that address this problem and improve mitochondrial function. X39 energy enhancer, Celergize, X2O, amongst others. Okay, decrease in telomere length. This would be a medical claim, so I'm only going to say that studies on carnosine have shown that they protect the telomeres from damaging. However, Celergize, specific nutrients in Celergize, Cyanothox, and also beta-alanine will not only help contribute to maintaining the length of the telomeres, but beyond that. Collagen. So most people, especially since we're very close to Los Angeles, think of collagen as something that we're going to use to plump up the skin, and that's totally fine. But collagen is the principal protein in the body. About 60% of the protein is collagen, so it's that important to our overall health and function. So when we see that we're elevating collagen production and it has a beneficial outcome on our skin, since the skin is principally collagen protein, then that is also reflected on what's going on inside the body. So if you're simply taking collagen supplements, using one of our patches, even taking vitamin C will stimulate new production of collagen. This is going to show up not only in your skin, but inside the body as well. There's also, of course, many studies which show that X39 and copper peptide specifically will elevate collagen production. So you're getting that benefit. Decrease in protein synthesis. One of the best things that you can do as you age is to exercise and build strength and stamina, and that's muscle protein synthesis. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's very important as a key strategy in anti-aging that you're getting enough protein in your diet. Use as a marker, about 1 gram of protein per pound of your body weight. Could be 0.8 grams per pound of body weight. But the key is that when you're looking at your diet, you should be looking at your protein intake and your intake of healthy fats so you have the raw materials necessary to make these proteins and to heal. And of course, as we've discussed, X39 helps with collagen production and, as we found, overall strength and stamina. So it plays a role in formation of other proteins as well. We also found in our very first clinical study on X2O that it did in fact initiate protein synthesis. We saw the metabolism of amino acids go way up. So one of the things you can do in your experimentation with X2O is add a branched chain amino acid supplement or a protein supplement in X2O before working out, and you may find that your ability to synthesize additional muscle tissue goes up. Sorry, no, I'm going very quickly. We have a lot of ground to cover. Detoxification. So this won't cost anything. If you practice intermittent fasting or regular fasting, it will help to remove these zombie cells from the body. So that's something that you can do that won't cost anything. Also, elevating glutathione. So whether or not that's with the glutathione patch, that's with Celergize, that's with your diet, on a daily basis, get proper hydration and detox, because we're constantly accumulating toxins in our body. Increase in oxidative stress. Well, Cyanothox that we included in Celergize, very, very powerful as a means of managing oxidative and inflammatory stress, along with the combination of our patches. And again, we've already covered this, so I'm going to keep moving along a little bit. Now, one thing that we're doing some very interesting research on is extra virgin olive oil. And we've been doing these experiments where we try to embed specific wavelengths of light. which we're not going to talk about today, into olive oil for producing new effects. And we think that there's going to be some very interesting outcomes to this work. But olive oil, especially extra virgin olive oil, make sure it's pure, is something you should be including in your daily diet because of all of the benefits. But one of the many benefits is that it's so rich in monounsaturated fats that it provides an anti-inflammatory effect, amongst others. Another benefit, interestingly, well, let's talk about gene expression and get to this because I'm running a little bit behind. X39. One of the key areas of age reversal is how do we reset genes to a more youthful state? So the idea is that if your genes were expressing at the age of a 25-year-old, even if you were 70 or 80 years old, if you had enough energy to drive the process, then eventually all the cells in your body would become 25 or 30-year-old cells. So that's what's exciting about that. The information is there. We just have to access it. And this happens through a process called methylation. But what would be some of the key ways today that we could restore genes to a healthy state? Well, we know one of them is X39. Physical exercise. Exercise will reset about 70 to 80 genes to a more youthful state. It's not very many when you consider, we might want to be able to reset 15,000 to 20,000, 18,000 genes to a more youthful state. But that's one of the benefits of resistance training and exercise. Olive oil. Actually, another benefit of olive oil, it's more powerful than resveratrol at resetting 2 of the sirtuin genes to a more youthful state. So it's known that there are 8 human sirtuin genes. 2 of those are reset to a more youthful state by olive oil. So yet another benefit by taking that daily. So the short version of this is that when we look at all of the signs and the symptoms of aging, there is very good information to show that there are things that we can do today to improve our health span and our longevity. The primary topic that we want to focus on is gene expression, since the others are resolvable, and how we can restore that information. The implications to this is that the problem of human aging is solvable. And it gives us the hope that not only can we extend how long we live, but we can live productive lives and more youthful lives in the process.
Wow,
Hey there.
isn't that juicy? Lots of information there.
Pretty amazing.
It is very amazing. Now, I so appreciate everyone that was here today, and you'll get the recording. And we're going to carry on tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific as well. There's so much to share, but just sit back and relax with a cup of tea or whatever and enjoy and absorb this information. And you may even want to share it with others. Now, I want to invite you to reach out to Greg and I. And if you have any questions, and if someone invited you today, you can reach out to them if it was not us, and ask to learn. I mean, this is pretty incredible stuff. I've been using the LifeWave X39 for almost 5 years now, and I can truly say that I feel more energy when I am wearing them. And I know Greg and I both always make sure when we're traveling that we're wearing our X39, X49, that's the performance pack. And we actually really notice a difference. And you will too. So with that, Greg, did you want to touch on anything else?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that you can go to healthywealthycamper.com. We've got some more videos there, and on healthywealthycamper.com/Bonnie, there's a way to make an appointment with Bonnie, especially if you're interested in improving your health and a business opportunity. Um, come and talk to us, and then join us tomorrow as we carry on with these watch parties.
Fabulous. I like I said, I was there live, but I can't wait to watch the replays myself.
Okay, so we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.